Welcome to People's Republic with Brianna Griffith. We bring you news and analysis from the front lines of the global struggle for social and economic justice. I'm your host, Brianna Griffith, and here's what's going down in your backyard and across the world. Welcome to People's Republic. My name is Brianna Griffith. For this week, we will be debuting a podcast I have been working on called the Valle Blast. This is a podcast with community leaders in the town of Del Valle, Texas, an unincorporated area just outside of Austin. If you've kind of heard me talk about Del Valle before, this is an important point of struggle of real social and economic justice for me, because so many workers within Del Valle live and sort of provide services for the city of Austin, or provide kind of labor for the corporations within the city of Austin and whatnot. Basically are providing labor for the city while receiving very little of the benefits in return. Many happen to be black and brown workers who were forced out of the city by gentrification. Del Valle also is a food desert without access to fresh produce, and faces a serious kind of lack of transportation and whatnot. So I am going to be working with community leaders in the following months, developing this podcast and other resources for Del Valle, Texas. And I think it's very instructive in how we can sort of build those alliances and how important those alliances can be between those who kind of live within the boundaries of major cities and those who might just be on the very cusp of those major cities. As I will often say, workers share so much more in common than we have separating us, and that we may face specific challenges. It's important for us for those of us who do live within cities like Austin, to always be looking to who is doing without, who doesn't have access to those city resources, as scant as they may be. So all that being said, I'm going to now kind of switch us over to the Del Valle Blast debut podcast here, which will be up on Spreaker shortly. This is going to be Richard Franklin's project. He's actually interviewing me for the first episode, so it's a bit of a change of pace, but it's as per usual, it's a very conversational style of interview. So this is, without further ado, the Del Valle Blast with Richard Franklin.
I want to welcome you to our first edition of the Reawakening. My name is Richard Franklin. I'm your host on this program. And we're going to be talking about any number of issues that are affecting us. This is part of the Del Valle Coalition, and will be broadcast out on the Del Valle Blast, our media outlet. Today, I'm going to be talking with Tina Byram. Tina, you can introduce yourself, if you would, please.
Hi, my name is Tina Byram. I'm the Vice President of the Del Valle Coalition, along with Richard Franklin.
My name is Brianna Griffith. I'm an organizer with the Austin branch of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I am also the producer and host of People's Republic on Co-op Radio 91.7.
Okay. And when we start talking about all our hats we wear, I think all of us are taking on a lot of different hats right now. I don't tell everybody all the things I do. I'm also the convener for the Great Panthers of Texas, and any number of other things, Vice President of Youth Group. Youth Unlimited, doing advocacy for kids in schools. But today we're going to talk about the things that are happening with adults. So let's start out talking about the intersection of all the problems that COVID-19, the crisis that it's created, and how it has affected you personally. And then we're going to talk about how that's has affected our communities indirectly. Tina, let me start with you. What have you been doing to get past the malaise of having to stay inside and not being able to go outside and be as active as you were in your life? What are you doing right now to get past that?
Well, I'm starting a nonprofit with you. So we are rebuilding with Susanna Woody, the Del Valle Community Coalition. And we recently did a fundraiser for Susanna's birthday, and we raised over $1,195, and we will become official in the next, several weeks or a month. And I'm building a nonprofit. We have about 12 projects going on in the works, in development for the coalition that we're building. And so I get to help an underserved population get services finally, and bring to light all the falsities that were being sold by the city of Austin and everything else about the Del Valley area, bringing to light the truth, and, I get to bring my media skills to the coalition to show people the truth. And I'm so excited, and I can't wait. I can't wait to build this with you. I'm so great and so happy about all this, and I'm very proud of the work I'm doing. So thank you, Richard. So this is all because of you, because this all started because you're like, we need an HEB, and then we had our first meeting at our house, and that's how it all started. So
that was back when we were actually meeting at people's homes and seeing each other face to face and all the things. Now we're doing some kind of video thing, everything. It's not as personal, but I miss you guys. I miss being in your room, being around you. I was so happy to see us out there, and you talked about a piece of property where we might be able to create something, some infrastructure, go into the city and talking about, hey, we need some services, and there's a gentleman who wants to work with us who would like to be able to give it to the city if we, and work with us and put something on it. It was just wonderful just seeing you guys out there. And Brianna, I missed you also, so I was hoping you're out there. Brianna, what have you been doing during this COVID crisis to bring attention to all the issues that are facing our community in the last 2 months for the most part?
Oh yeah, where to even begin on that, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing for me was, like in my kind of role at the radio station at Co-op Radio, we had this kind of scramble when COVID hit to figure out how to produce things remotely. So a lot of my kind of first month or so of kind of effort as a political organizer was, or I guess in this capacity, like a radio producer, was just to try and like get some community media back on air, just to to make sure that like the shows that Co-op was airing beforehand, like especially those news and public affairs shows, but as well as the music shows, really like just to make sure that people had a voice out there, like some sort of community media voice that people could listen into and know that it was coming from their community. Because like there's so little community media out there. There's so little really like sources that people can turn to that's like where that someone is just sort of a voice from the community rather than either like paid professional journalists or whatnot with a lot of these major corporate outlets. So it's like after I was able to help with the team, those getting back those normal shows on the air, the next thing for me was this rents issue really, because like we're facing with COVID and with other kind of pre-existing, I guess you could call them pre-existing conditions of American society, we're facing so many possible head-on collisions, the first of which is the rent issue, the fact that people have been unemployed. A lot of people have been unemployed for months now. Their rent keeps accumulating. There have been these kind of moratoriums or whatnot on evictions or whatnot. But like, what does it matter if you're not getting evicted this month, if you still owe thousands of dollars to your landlord when this thing is all over and you just get evicted in a couple months? So one of the things I initially started working on with PSL was the Cancel the Rents campaign, this kind of nationwide, we were doing socially distanced car protests, caravans, but it's like we were driving around with signs. We were trying to get people's attention and basically demand kind of a federal level cancellation of the rent so that like all of these different patchwork city protections didn't leave anybody out, but this so that like really people were not accumulating massive debt so that people could stay inside their homes. With the police brutalities here, the police murder of especially Mike Ramos, but APD has also murdered a couple other people.
APD is always murdering somebody.
Yeah. So I've been both kind of reporting on that, trying to like understand what exactly it was that APD did. They just basically executed this guy in cold blood. But then the other part of that was actually organizing the massive protests that have started to grow across the country in the past week or two, the past couple weeks. So we the PSL, I've been on the ground for that. The other PSL comrades have been on the ground for that. So like we're trying to be everywhere the people are. It's certainly like everything seems so up in the air, but I've seen so much resurgence, in real like sort of revolutionary activity, things I have not seen in my lifetime. So, on the one hand, we're facing all these head-on collisions, but on the other, it's like the intensity of the oppression, repression, and the intensity of like the economic hardships and the social and political hardships that people are facing has forced, I think, a real like street resistance that we haven't seen in a very long time. So I've been on the ground for a lot of that, both as an organizer, trying to get out the word, trying to draw people out, and as a journalist trying to report on that. So that kind of brings me up to date as far as what I've done.
Well, and I've got to tell you that we were doing a lot of work before the crisis hit and everybody had to lock themselves inside. In fact, Spencer Cronk had to cancel a meeting that we were going to have with them at the high school the week that they shut down. So we were in the process of saying, look, we were about to light him up about the things that weren't happening and what he should be doing. We'd already met with somebody from the city a couple of weeks before that. And again, that same conversation we're having with these people is a conversation. There's never any promises and or actions behind their words, which is difficult. And we keep having to go through these things over and over again. My concern is we're hot and bothered right now, and it was the perfect stew of issues that came about because of COVID. And it's showing how it literally put a downward pressure on the infrastructure of the poor, minority communities, poor communities, underprivileged communities, all suffered dramatically immediately. But what I'm noticing is, as soon as the bounce back happens in our economy, the last person's fired were the first person hired, and just the opposite. And the people who they let go first were minorities. The Black population is still unemployed. In fact, the unemployment is 2.5 million jobs were created. Black people still didn't get jobs. In fact, the employment for them went up even more. So, and the same thing for Mexicans, the same thing. So I start looking at how is it that the country that continues to talk about being great, that you had one crisis. I mean, it was a crisis, but let's get realistic though. You've lost 108,000 people, but your economy shut down within the first week, 3.6 million people were unemployed. Within a month, almost 40 million people were unemployed. And by the way, they're lying about the numbers. In the employment, I'm going to do a segment on this talking about the fact we never stopped fighting the Civil War. This country has always been fighting the Civil War, and we're fighting it again. And the Civil War was fought over people doing free labor. Let's get realistic. The conversation has to be about right now they're trying to put people back to work in spite of the situation they're putting themselves in. They don't care about them. They just become cogs. And if they don't understand it, then they need to understand that's how this game is being played. They don't care that you're going to get sick. They don't care that your family's going to get sick. Some of you are going to die. Some of you are not going to be able to pay your bills. In the economic system right now, the people who have money, the stock market took off because they realized they're putting the people back to work regardless of how much money they're going to make. The people who make money are the people at the end of that scale, not the beginning. So the person that works at H-E-B, the person that works at McDonald's, the person that works at, out there in the service industry, they're going back to work and they're still making minimum wage and making massive amounts of money for people at the top. And they're the ones who are going to get sick. They've got to go back to work though, because if they don't, because this society didn't lock their rents in. It didn't lock the payments down. It didn't say you don't have to pay for water and electricity and your credit cards. It didn't freeze anything where it was and say, oh, by the way, we're going to suspend those payments and not try to recoup them, because the economic system says I have to recoup my money so I can keep making more money when it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. It's been proven that these systems don't need the money that we're paying into them. It's been proven that we don't need the military to be as bloated as this, that we don't need bloated police departments. We don't need that, because when they're less, they do less, in which case you have less people getting arrested. That's the reality. Less people getting reality means this brutality conversation would not be where it is right now. We're having a conversation about police brutality right now because everybody was in the homes watching their social media outlets. And that hit everybody. It was on Twitter. It was on YouTube. It was on Facebook. It was on every social media thing. And everybody has one of those or several of those. And they had to see somebody die. They had to see a slow death, an execution. At the same time, they're sitting in their homes saying, I don't know when I'm going back to work. And they've been in their home for a month now. They're hearing about these things. They're seeing a man jogging getting shot. They're hearing about a woman in her home being killed by mistake and 24 bullets riddling their apartment. And the man who tried to protect his girlfriend as they were killing them was arrested because he was in a defense mode. And the NRA doesn't step up there. The same people who talk about having gun rights and protecting yourselves didn't say, they were totally cricket wise. They didn't say a word. So you're watching these things all at the same time. You're also worried about your own circumstances. And then people start talking about how the COVID thing was taking an undue toll in the Black and brown communities, that was hitting them harder. So they were suffering dramatically. And then it started to filter up into the middle class. The people who were actually watching the videos was also suffering. And that's when it came to us. I said, look, it's time for you to join us in the fact that the robber barons are killing all of us. That Bezos is making more money now because they've locked you in your house and he's the only way you can get the groceries. They finally realized that's what was happening, and everybody's in the streets. Well, a great many people are in the streets. More people should be, but a great many people in the streets. And they're in the streets in every city in America right now. That's the funny part. That's the great part. That it's not this time, it's just not Newark and Detroit. It's not 1968. And I remember, we went to our grandfather as Detroit burned, as they call it the National Guard. I remember driving through because I was in Columbus, but I'm from Detroit. And I remember how it was and that warlike feeling, that feeling of being under siege by the military in your own hometown, and realizing that at any point in time they could turn a gun and kill you. I'm driving through with mother and father as a kid. And you realize I'm 12 years old and I'm in the back of the car realizing these guys got machine guns and they are glaring at you and there's a tank at the end of the street. And they literally could say, I've had enough and I'm going to kill me a black person today because I've had enough of black people acting a fool. Because that's what the conversation was. We were acting a fool. Not the fact that you just killed someone, that you just destroyed their community, that you've run highways through their neighborhood like you did in Detroit. And my grandfather's home, the family home, was destroyed by a freeway. It was them and not the people who were being that they were destroying their assets and goods. It was them. They should have never done that to their own. It's not my neighborhood. You've shown me that this wasn't my neighborhood. Well, now they're showing America while they're doing this, it isn't their neighborhood either. When someone says, whose streets? Our streets? And Donald Trump goes out there and says, I need to go take a walk, clear the streets. It ain't your streets no more. And what we didn't learn, and I'm still watching, is when you're at war, you got to get armed like you're at a war. And the foolish game we're playing is I'm going to take an ass whooping, which is what peaceful protests are, as opposed to a forceful protest, which means you put a sign up that's an inch thick, a 2x3, you put your stuff on that. It's plywood, so that when they come out there and start shooting, that stuff bounces off the plywood. We can wear masks now. So you can put a half gas mask on. You can take goggles in your pocket. You can put on a bicycle helmet and literally be out there and fully loaded if you have to and protect yourself. And stand there and not move because I got news for you. They're cowards because their behavior is cowardly. And cowards don't want to be forced into situations because bullies will run. Bullies don't come out there and just act a fool. Yeah, they'll line up a whole bunch of people and everybody come there. The situation is warlike now. My problem is we allowed ourselves to be treated like this, and then we allowed for the same conversation at the media level, at the national media level, that continues this on and on again. So when we talk about what we're doing with this COVID thing, as soon as this gets a vaccine or whatever, and we've actually found out we can test everybody, then we're going to say we're going to go back to normal. Well, what's normal for us? Tina, what do you think normal is for us once we get past and we have an actual vaccine or a testing for everybody for COVID, and we say we can do what we used to do? What will you be doing then?
This experience has shown me that a lot of the stuff that I know it sounds very simple now, but like the money I used to spend on stuff, like because as of now, like I hoard my money. Like I'm afraid because the future is so unpredictable. Like I don't even know if I'm going to have a job. I'm grateful every day I have a job and that I can pay my mortgage and, that I have support. And if I was in real trouble, I know I have friends that would be able to help me or whatever. But I noticed that I know I don't need the stuff I used to spend money on, the frivolous things. Like even going out to eat, like do I really need to do that? Like, do I really need to spend the money? And I feel that this is going to make people stop valuing stuff. It's not going to be about stuff. It's not about consumerism. And I think our economy is going to have to change, because I don't think people are going to be like consuming like we were. Because if people are just happy to get fed, when I see the lines of people at Central Texas Food Bank when they're distributing at Del Valley, and there's 1,300 families that are going there to get boxes, like that really puts life in perspective. Like, I feel that we need to invest in each other and invest in people, help them improve their lifestyles of getting better jobs or skills or anything else to make sure that they're competitive. My investment, I think I want to invest in people. I want to invest in relationships. I think I value people more, and I value making things better for other people, for strangers, and common things that I would do a normal day just because of my personality. I think I want to amplify that and support, however I can support, I will be there. You need me to support a GoFundMe campaign, done. Here's $25, $30. Might not be a lot, but it's contributing to people. I would rather give myself than go pay for like a massage or go pay for some sort of, something for myself. Like, I just think I value people more,
Right. Yeah, I actually, the video I sent out, somebody actually sent me $600 because of it. And I'm buying masks for my kids. I'm buying a UVC light. In fact, I've already got it, so that when I go in the classrooms, I can turn it on before they walk in, ozone it out, and then let the kids come in and start doing whatever. I mean, literally, it's about how do we take the money we have now and start using it about people's lives more so than buying some things. I got enough things. I got so many. When you got so many things that you have to have a storage shed for your things, then you got too many things.
I think part of that though is like, people always want to blame consumerism on that, or people want to blame that on consumerism, this idea that like we're a consumer culture and the problem is that we want too many things. But I think the other part, like, to me, it's like we have to look at the producerism of it. We have to look at, like, it's not that anybody ever asked. It's not that we as a society want to be flooded with, like, iPhones or with just, like, cheap nonsense. It's that those were the things that were produced because we're not really in control of, like, production. We're not in control of what commodities we actually need. A very a very small percentage of people have like that level of control over what commodities get produced. There's like that production of commodities, that need to constantly produce things and then sell them is the root of all this. Like we could call that producerism, but we could really call that capitalism. It's that capitalist drive to turn everything into a commodity and then to sell as many commodities at the lowest price. And the only way you get the lowest price is by paying the lowest wages. And when you pay the lowest wages, guess what? If you're paying your workers as little as possible, everyone else is paying their workers as little as possible. So nobody has any money. So then you've got this flood of things you just produced, this flood of commodities. You've got nowhere to sell them though, because everybody's been paid, everybody's wages have been depressed. And so like that's the boom and bust cycle. It's an overproduction of worthless things while workers get paid less and less and less. And I know some people, a lot of groups I work with, like they engage in that sort of like mutual aid. And I know that was real important to like for instance, the Black Panthers, where there's like survival programs of, we're going to provide our communities with breakfast, with school supplies, this, and this. And those are important. Like PSL engages in that in a lot of cities for sure. But the other part of that also has to be that revolutionary education of like showing people it's like, well, this is why we don't have these things. This is why we have a shortage. This is why we have too much housing and still have homeless people. This is why we have too much food and yet we still have people who are starving, still have people who are waiting outside food banks while food rots in grocery stores and other parts. Right. So it's like, to me, it's like from my perspective as a socialist, it's like we need to protect ourselves. We need to help ourselves. We need to do everything possible. But we also need that kind of revolutionary moment so that we ourselves, the workers, the oppressed people, can be in control of the production so that we don't have to worry about like how low our wages are going to go, so that we can pay ourselves what we're worth, so that we can produce what society needs, and so that we can distribute that fairly, so that, again, we don't have these overproduction cycles while people go without.
Well, that's an interesting concept, and I'm thinking while we're doing this, because I'm looking at what I have behind my head right now. I've got albums and books and all this stuff, and it's stuff at the end of the day. But it was used to entertain people. It's used to educate people. So, at what point in time do we define what a valuable life is? Because I think what we've done in America specifically is we've taken it to another level of what we value. We look at all these things and say that's valuable. And I keep telling Jeff, because they ask me all the time in my program, Mr. Franklin, are you rich? And I tell people, I said, I've had a lot of money, but I didn't become rich until I started doing this program and start dealing with you kids. And I do this for damn near nothing, because then I realized I value what I'm doing with children. I value what they're getting. I value them. And I value my time with them. I value a smile and a kid who gets it. I value different things rather than, man, it was nice having that brand new car that just rolled out and had that brand new leather smell, and, you know, with a convertible that just rolled off and they start production. I remember that, you know, I just got $4,000 worth of wheels on there. And, you know, I said, man, this is, you know, it's nice to be able to walk off into Scheffler's and buy that $1,200 hat, you know, and not even dream about how much was it. I just bought it. You know, it was nice to have that. But at the end of the day, I don't even know what a hat is. I don't know what the boots I bought. I don't know what them boots are anymore. So that was a passing process. But the kids that I've had in my program, I still talk to them. I've got kids who I've been with since the year I started this, I'm still Facebook friends with them. I still talk to them through social media. So I've been doing this for 15 years now, and I got kids out there that are grown. And as I said, they've had kids now. And I knew it was going to happen. And I would hope that what we're doing in our educational process is teaching people how to be better people.
And that is a selection from the upcoming podcast, Del Valle Blast, with Richard Franklin, the host there, interviewing me. We talk about a wide variety of issues facing the unincorporated area of Del Valle, just outside of the city of Austin. And so, yeah, I'm going to be working with community leaders on that particular project. Very glad to be a part of that and to feature that on my show. We will continue featuring those voices after the break. You are listening to People's Republic. People's Republic originates on KOOP 91.7 FM Austin and is also broadcast on WHIV 102.3 FM New Orleans. We are available as a podcast on Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are podded. Stay tuned. And now we continue with the Del Valle Blast featuring Richard Franklin on People's Republic.
Not only are you good to yourself, but you're good to others. What you do is not only for yourself, but it's also for other people. And you'll notice that when you do it for someone else, it comes back to you. It's a reflection. It's like warm sun rays that you give off that come right back to you. It's amazing that we haven't looked at how wonderful that is. And I got to tell you guys, it's funny because I'm not religious, but I got a lot of my friends who are, and I keep saying, you guys wouldn't deal with Jesus Christ if he was on the planet right now. He was broke as a church mouse. Based on your book and the things you read, he ain't had no money. He had none of that stuff y'all are talking about. So how is it we have somebody that you worship that didn't have nothing? Why don't you, if you were going to do what he was doing, if you're going to be more like that, then you wouldn't have the stuff you have. Because that's not where his value came from. That's not why you valued who he was and what he was when he was here. Or any of the other people in our religious books that you consider to be prophets or people that you worship. None of those people are about stuff. They're about the human condition. And we've got to start looking at how do we change the human condition so that we have valuable lives. And I'm hoping that what we're doing here and the things we continue to do will be about valuable lives. In fact, I'm going to tell you what I've been doing over the time frame, what we're putting right now. I'm thinking about buying a food trailer, because I know I can't afford to put a brick and mortar up yet. If things change out here, though, I may be able to even get along for that. But I want to put a food trailer up because one of the things we have right now is a dearth of food places to eat. We can't go out and eat, and everybody can't afford to or have the time to set something up for themselves every day. And I want to do something where it's healthy, it's fast, it's good, and it's cheap. And I don't mean cheap from the standpoint of the food itself is cheap, but it's inexpensive because I'm not working. I'll work on the margins. You know, I think what we haven't looked at is how do we take some place that provides a service that's willing to work only in the margin rather than continuing to increase their profits year after year, which is the corporate way. That's what I want to do. I've done it before, where I share the wealth with the people who work with me. You take that night's receipts and look at it and say, yeah, we're going to make $1,500 a day. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give everybody in the house a $100 bonus today, and that those kinds of things, so that the people who work there have more money and a stake in the business, a stake in what you're doing. So you show them how it can be done. And I think I'm also looking at how do we get an A Smart out here, because I don't want to shop at Lowe's and Home Depot to do the little work around my house that I'm trying to improve on. My little space. How do I improve my little space? Well, I keep having to go to a place that continually to donate to people who don't give a damn about me. How do I take that away from them? How do we start something where we have it, where I don't have the infrastructure to build my own hardware store, but A Smarts are franchises. So how do we get our own A Smart? How do we get healthcare? How do we make sure that transportation is done properly when this thing comes back around? And here's the funny part. When people are starting to run for office, we really got to start holding their feet. When I say holding their feet in the fire, I'm talking about burning them damn things up. We got to make sure that when they come to you, you tell them what is absolutely necessary before they're elected, not the after promise. See, after they're elected, we become fodder. We're not even in the game anymore. So it is necessary to have them say what they're going to do as soon as they get to that position. Put it in writing, make it part of your platform, write a blood oath, and then deliver. If not, then we can't have a conversation. And we've got to start doing that. Somebody said it's not a party. It's not a party process. It is a public notice that these people are going to take care of the most needy. In writing, I'm going to prioritize the areas of people who don't have. That's the way we have to do this. And the people who are out here right now, and it's sadly, the people who we're trying to help don't get it either. You'd be amazed how many people I got off the next door neighbor because I got tired of cussing people out. If you're too stupid to know how you're getting hurt, I don't have time to even try to school you anymore. If you're 50 years old and you don't see how damaged your community is based on the way traffic has been funneled into one road and how many accidents happen out there and how many of our kids get killed on these streets every day, how many people we've lost in our community because the traffic way it's been set up is set up to get you killed. If you don't see that, then I don't have any words for you. If you don't understand what it means to get on the road at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, to go to the grocery store and go 9 miles in one direction to shop to go get the minuscule groceries that you can afford right now because you're broke as hell, because you've never been paid properly the job you're in, I don't have time for that. Because you're living it every day, and I shouldn't have to explain it to you. If you're 50 years old and you're in this community and you've been out here and you literally come out, I've been here for 17 years. You've been here for 17 years and suffering most of the time. And you're looking for somebody to blame for your suffering. I'm not the person to blame. If I point it out to you, don't come to me and say, well, you shouldn't complain. What? You did. You're the one who said you don't have. So my issue comes down to the people that you're trying to help rarely get on the side of the ball where you are when you're pushing up the hill. So I'm hoping that what we do within this process of Del Valle Blast, as we do a reawakening on a week-to-week basis and talk about the issues that are facing us, how do we solve these problems? Tina, we have been working on in numerous objectives at this point with respect to solving some of the problems out here. What do you think we can do in the near future? I'm talking about within the next 360 days that we can make a major impact and change the living conditions of the people in this community. What do you feel that we can do immediately or initially that will change something that right away?
Well, so I remember having a conversation with Pat King recently, and we were talking about something I can't remember, and she was talking about voices, about people, that the only way we can succeed in any of our projects, there's only like a handful of us that are doing this, but we need everybody's voices to start listening and paying attention and start asking these questions. Why is it like this? Why is the traffic so bad? Why are these things? And it's you do more in numbers. So we have to grow our numbers and get more people involved in the coalition. And by growing that, we can successfully do these projects and get them off the ground so that we can, build a recreation center or hold Travis County Court and say, hey, Central Health isn't doing what they said they were supposed to do. Like it's all in numbers. We need to grow our numbers to have people go, oh my gosh, we have so many protesters downtown and those voices. Yeah, but how long is that going to last when we're fighting every day in a community that's so fractured? We're like, we need you to become part of our community. The coalition, I think, is a collaboration of getting people together and come together to become a community instead of the HOAs. It's an opportunity to not be part of an HOA community. It's to actually build a community that people can tell each other, hey, what do you need from me? Hey, I can't afford something. Hey, can you lend me some money? Or hey, my car broke down. Can I borrow yours? Like, it builds this community that starts taking care of each other that we don't have. And I remember, I know you were there when I tried to start the Neighborhood Watch. We tried trying to build just to have a community separated from the HOAs, because I feel that the HOAs seem to have their own agenda and their own priorities. And I don't think that the coalition is doing this because we're doing it for us. We're doing it for the people in our community to make lives better for everybody and bring joy and happiness. I mean, it's simple things of like movie night, for example, the leaps and bounds of just to have a movie night for the kids. You and I have to go jump through hoops just to get that. Like, I don't want that anymore. I want a recreation center that we can host the movie night and then no HOA. We don't have to get approval because we own it. Like, I want to build a recreation center where our kids all over town, we'll rent buses if we have to pick up all the kids and bring them to this recreation center. I don't care. Like, we'll hire bus drivers. I want to get to the point where all they have to do is parents get permission, they get on a bus and they can come watch a movie and we don't have to talk to any HOA. Because I'm tired about it, because the HOAs fracture us and not bring us together as a community. And we're too big to have so many HOAs have so much power. We're too big. We're almost the size of a city. Like, we really are. And it just doesn't make sense to us have to have like one HOA. And I don't like the fact that one HOA can dictate to other people. I'm just tired of the lack of unity, and I don't like the bad mouthing. I don't like that the creation of, oh, well, I don't agree with you, so I'm going to tell everybody how horrible you are, and I'm going to turn people against you because I learned that, and I wrote a blog about it. I don't know if you read my blog, but I was really upset. People were messaging me because I was standing up for the fact that they closed the centers, and they're like, well, you're hurting Central Health. Like, they were defending Central Health. And I'm like, wait a minute. Central Health works for us, and you guys are not holding them accountable. They're not a nonprofit. They're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They take our property tax money. We pay tax to them. They should have built the clinic years ago. And I just don't understand why they think that, we're being mean to like some great community leaders. They're not community leaders. They're not a nonprofit that's coming in here. They are an actual taxing entity that owes us a clinic. I mean, you had mentioned that they had already allocated the funds to build the clinic. And we got that portable right out by the fireplace. Like, what are you talking? You consider that healthcare? Like, you had money allocated to build a permanent facility, and why is it taking you so long to build this building?
$8 million has been set aside.
And I'm like, but where is the money? I even, and all these politicians are coming to us and they want our support. It's like, what have you done for us? Nothing. You've sat on there and been in office and ignored us. And then now that we're actually organizing. And I think that's the reason why Central Health gets very defensive with us. I think they're scared of us because Hornsby Bend has never organized. They've never organized. They've never had people. People are starting to pay attention because people are starting to message me. And people that hadn't messaged me before are like, how can I help? And I think the Blast is doing that. I think that educating what's going on, I think is making a difference because they can see it. They can see it and they can hear it. And they're like, I didn't know. And you know what? And honestly, and in their defense, I got to tell you, I sit on hours for their call. I really think that if there is a hell, then my idea of hell is being on a central call for eternity, listening over and over these conversations. Like seriously, like that would be my punishment if there's a hell, because those are the worst calls I ever. And it's not because it's boring. It's not because it's just I feel as though they talk down to people, and they talk to us as though we're idiots. And
it's worse than that. Tina, it's worse than that. They talk down to you, and they spend a lot of time talking about the same thing they've already talked about, so they can waste time and say, and then turn around and go, we don't have much time left. That's what it is. It's upsetting to me to listen to people who are supposed to be taking care of the needs of a community, who literally waste time when they know they're not taking care. And the history of Central Health with us is on a whole nother level of messed up. And see, your issue is you're still calm with these people who are still pumping these people up. I don't have time for it. I know what they've done. And I know why the only reason you're having a conversation about Central Health now is because of the lawsuit we filed. So when you look at these people out here who are suffering, our real issue comes down to, we haven't asked how many people have died in their homes. How many people are suffering right now because they didn't have health care and didn't have access to health care in a rapid fashion? Because when we use the EMS system as our rapid health care process, that's not acceptable. And I'm telling you, when my father fell on the ground, and 18 minutes later, they finally got to him, because that's how long it took for the EMS to get out to us. 18 minutes. That winds up being an eternity. You want to know what real hell is? That was 18 minutes of hell. Because I'm sitting here wondering if my dad's going to take another breath. The whole time I was wondering if he was going to take a breath. And I'm not sure that 18 minutes didn't do damage to him, that he never recovered from. So how many of our families out here who are suffering those kinds of things? We know we've had people on our Facebook page who've talked about cancer in their homes and, a diabetes in their homes. So, and that goes back to the juxtaposition of not having food security in our neighborhood. And we start talking about diabetes. Well, our kids don't get to go outside and do a whole lot, because out of 2,700 homes or 2,900 homes now, on this side of this side of 969 alone, you know how many kids we have that we have one full-size basketball court, by the way, they can't play on it, one half-size basketball court, a swimming pool they can't use, and gym equipment that, or a playground for kids that's 20 years old. If it weren't for the school, you'd have nothing out here at all. And that's just a track that they can walk around, and some tennis courts. So for an entire community, you don't have any athletic facilities or anything with respect to recreational for these kids. And you probably got out here 1,000, 1,500 kids who literally have nothing to do all day. And then when people wonder why there's crime, well, idle hands create problems. And that's what's happening right now. And we've got to get the word out. And that's, Brianna, I'm so glad that you're with us, because you've got an outlet for us to get the word out here. But going forth,
just speaking as a journalist, like, media is in such bad shape right now. There are so few outlets. There are so few kind of independent voices out there. And at this point, like, the environment is so hostile. Like, corporate media has felt so threatened at their own kind of delegitimacy. Basically, they've delegitimized themselves by supporting war after war, coup after coup, police violence after police violence. They found themselves with this crisis of legitimacy. So now they've gone hard, and like social media has gone hard on, like, basically smearing everyone as like a Russian agent, a Russian asset, a Russian dupe, and so it becomes all of that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's tough. There are voices at Co-op. There are people at Co-op who do care, who will keep hosting these issues. I'll keep posting on my own show, People's Republic, for sure.
and keep trying to my best to amplify voices out of Del Valley. As a political organizer, wearing yet another hat, I've seen the issues in Del Valley, and like it shows this kind of like disconnect between like the city funding the kind of like where major resources are in major cities versus a lot of times the people who are working in those major cities. A lot of times the people who are providing really cheap labor because of how depressed the wages are, who are providing like labor for the city of Austin, who are providing all this value for the city of Austin, who are getting absolutely nothing in return. This central health thing that's been going on, Del Valley, as with like so much of East Austin as well, was the first to have like these health clinics start to close up, and to have this complete lack of health resources at this critical point. That's the time the money's there. It's all just going into like Austin Police Department. PD getting almost $500 million a year. So like, you wonder why there aren't resources either for Del Valley or for East Austin or for like just generally working class Black and brown communities. It's because all that money is being funneled into like APD, Austin Police Department, as well as like Travis County Sheriff's Office at the county level. It's all going into the police state, and like we can change that for sure. We can change it. We just need that demand. We need that power for sure.
Well, it's more insidious than that though, because when I look at how they budget their money and where it goes, especially at APD, at Austin, you got to understand how we've been left out of all of the funding. Everything we do, we've been left out of funding. Del Valley School District has 50% of the kids that go to Del Valley School District are citizens of Austin. So you would think that they would say, oh, well, we got to make sure those kids are taken care of when they literally have been left out there on the vine to die. So I asked a couple of years ago for the budget because the city had just approved $5 million to go to AISD. So here's a city that literally has 8 school districts within their borders. And yet they take a major amount of money and put it into AISD and leave all the other school districts out of the mix. So, and then they say, well, this is for social programs. So I said, well, we got social programs in every one of the other schools. And the poor school district, remember, if you got the parents who are paying city taxes, they're paying into AISD and their kids get nothing out of it. At the same time, they gave the city of Austin, gave AISD almost $5 million. Del Valley got $3,600.
Oh, that's crazy.
$3,600. So you're funding their failure. You're funding their failure to get monies into your kids to help them. When you look at Del Valley not having recreational facilities, not having swimming pools, not having libraries out east. When I say out east, I'm talking about Del Valley, which as the crow flies is only 9 miles from downtown. Then what you're saying is I, who have less, pay taxes for you to have more. And you continue to fund things that have more. And I said it then, I'm saying it now. How is it I've got kids who are poor, whose families are poor, are paying into a district that's then giving the money to someone else so they can redirect monies around so they don't suffer ever for anything. That's the same thing they did with the healthcare process. We pay taxes. We've been paying taxes 15 years. You finally give us a clinic, which is inadequate, but you give us a clinic and then you turn around and say, oh, there's a crisis. We've got to withdraw everything from you who have less, who are going to suffer more, and put it somewhere where people already have to make sure they don't ever have to worry about having more or having a lack thereof. So our issue comes down to us paying, and this is, by the way, this is also historic. The people who have the less pay taxes and don't have access to the things that taxes pay for. That's reality. And until we change that dynamic, until we hold somebody, and I'm hoping that these groups that we're going to be talking to, who are now suddenly rewoke, as it were, I'm hoping that with their wokeness, because they got mad about Trump. But when I spoke about downtown in front of City Hall about Trump, I said, Trump just got elected. Nothing's happened because of Trump. Trump, y'all just mad because he's a damn fool. You're mad because he's a misogynistic asshole, and you know he's going to mess this up for you. But what I look at is I've never seen any of you out in Del Valley fighting for me. I've never seen any of you in Eastern Travis County talking about the lack of goods and services, those people who are going to take it on the chin. Even worse, behind the idiot that's been elected. I didn't see you fighting for me. You want me to come down and support your nonsense, but you won't support me in getting what I need. And then you venerate people who don't get it either. I was appalled by the behaviors of Greg Casar, who I want to get on this program, on our podcast. I want to get him on here so I can ask the question: is he aware of the outcomes of things when you say, "Well, we're going to be a sanctuary city," along with Sally Hernandez, and we're not going to abide by what they're saying right now. Are you aware that the outcome was the governor ordered his people to come down on the immigrant population, the Mexican population, like a ton of bricks? Are you aware that the people in Del Valle who had already put in place fallbacks that when our parents were being picked up, that we had somebody as a notary that could sign them over so somebody else could take care of their kids as they were being deported? Were you aware that now the kids can't even be dropped off at school because the parents won't even take them to school? Are you aware that now the sheriff who did that stupid shit now has 12 cars out there waiting to arrest my kids, and State Highway Patrol is arresting my people up and down the street, that we are now all the way out to the county line trying to hide from what you created? Were you aware of that, or is just a situation you just wanted to get mad and do something? Because when you do actions, you don't talk to the people those actions are going to affect, then you don't give a damn about those people. When you say, oh, by the way, we're going to make sure it's a minimum wage for everybody. Well, I love that thought, except for one thing. That mom and pop store over there has 2 employees, and you just made him pay $15 an hour, and he was already working in the margin. He has 2 choices. He can not feed his family and keep those 2 people on. He can let one person go and keep the other one and give them $15 an hour, because he was only paying himself $200 a week already, or $200 a day max, whatever it might be. But what I'm saying is, you didn't see the outcome that you're going to create because you didn't talk to the people who live in the margins. If you haven't been to the county line and see people who are living in trailers right by the river, then you need to go down and see it before you start making decisions about what happens to those people. You need to understand before you make these decisions about how it affects the people at the bottom. You only look at the people at the top, and I got that. I know I'm mad as hell at Jeff Bezos. I hate Bill Gates. I got that. But I don't hate the mom and pop person that's out there trying to supplement their income with a trailer that just has additional put-upons, additional rules and regulations. They can't operate. They literally can't operate now. So you put them out of business. Guess where that business went? Corporate America, because they already have it set up for them. Look at what policies and practices you put in place, and see how you benefit us for real by coming to us and talking about how do we make this where you benefit and corporations don't. How do we make that happen? That's how you do this, not that other nonsense. So I understand everybody's mad, but at some point in time, you got to come down here and understand what they're saying is correct from a Republican standpoint. The regulations and so forth are killing small businesses. But how do you make sure that small businesses don't kill us and can still work, and you don't continue to give money to people at the top? My problem is the Democrats didn't say anything about $1.5 trillion being given to corporate America. They gave that money away, and we know, and we're the ones that are going to pay for that. We, the public, the masses, the poor, are going to pay for that $1.5 trillion.
And yet they're worried somebody might have looted a Target, right?
Right. Who has insurance, who will come back bigger and stronger. Come on, man. We need to stop this conversation. You can't talk to me about corporate America. Now, the mom and pop store beside Target that burns down, that's a different issue, because I don't know if he had his insurance paid up. So what we have to do is be targeted, direct, specific on what we're trying to do. And the problem is when they do these sweeping reforms do just that. They get rid of everything, except the broom's not big enough to sweep out corporate America. The sweeping reform is only hitting the little thing that can be moved. That's what we got to understand. Every week we need to bring somebody on here or two and talk to them about how they're going to change, especially the people who are in positions of power, policymakers, how they're going to create policies that are going to address the people who are in the most need, specifically. That's what we got to do on here. Because for us to get people to be awakened and stay awoke, we've got to make sure they understand they're talking to people, and you can hear their voices of what they will do, what they can't do, or what they won't do. We've got to do that weekly. We're going to sign off for today, but we'll see you back here next week.
That was Richard Franklin interviewing me for the first episode of the Del Valle Blast, a new podcast from the unincorporated area of Del Valle, the small community outside of Austin. I am going to be working with the community leaders there, including Richard Franklin, on sort of providing them a platform in order to talk about the issues specific to Del Valle, which of course is a food desert. Does not have the same access to, fresh produce, but also doesn't have the same access to city resources, and has struggled to get any sort of healthcare facility built in the area. So, I'm going to continue working with them because I think it's important to bridge those divides between workers and working class organizers who live within the city limits and those who live with, just outside of the city limits. It's important for workers of all stripes to sort of understand these various struggles that we all engage in. We are going to return with regular interviews next week. I have all sorts of exciting stuff lined up. I will likely be talking to organizers from Atlanta about the continuing struggle against police brutality there, which is also continuing to unfold in most of the country and even growing in some spots. Really exciting uprising there. And I'm also going to be talking about the labor side of things, how labor unions have engaged in protests and actions to declare their support for not only the Black Lives Matter movement, but larger kind of black liberation struggles. So that's where we're going to be next week. Thanks for tuning in. And I'll catch you then. That's all we have for this week. You have been listening to People's Republic with Brianna Griffith. People's Republic originates in Austin, Texas, and is also available as a podcast on Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are podded. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at People's Radio ATX for more news and analysis. We are out of here.